Hello, my name is Isaac Montelongo, and my senior seminar presentation is on firefighters, struggles of mental disorder, and coping. So what really got me into this topic is this picture of this firefighter right here named Joe Batista, who during his time as a firefighter served during the events of 9/11. And witnessing all these horrific events during 9/11 caused him to develop severe mental disorders, which put him in a mental hospital. And over time, with his unstable mindset, led to him his suicide in a mental hospital. So I think it's really important to understand the mental disorders that are greatly affecting firefighters, and as well as the importance of coping. So my research questions for this are mental disorders that are largely affecting firefighters, and the second one being what are effective methods of coping for mentally ill firefighters. The methods were from 20-year-old fire recruits to 60-year-old retired veterans, with mostly them being male. Measures were from the coping inventory, and which consisted from interviews and surveys, and the design were from cross-sectional and longitudinal studies. From the results for mental disorders, PTSD and anxiety are two of the largest disorders affecting firefighters. And with higher levels of PTSD and anxiety, it can lead to development of other mental disorders such as depression, suicide, and drinking habits. Um, with higher levels of PTSD, there are higher rates of suicide and suicide attempts. With Stanley et al. Study with this pie chart on figure one, it shows that 57 foster an idea of suicidal thoughts, 24% with suicidal plans, and 19% with suicide attempts. And anxiety as sensitivity as well being another factor contributing to suicide. For coping, peer support is an effective method as well, with especially when peer support is consistent from other mentally ill firefighters. Task-oriented coping, emotional-oriented coping, and avoidance-oriented coping are also successful um, strategies for coping, with task-oriented being one of the most successful, which we can see from Witt et al. Study, with task-oriented being 54.8 out of the highest out of all of the three, as well as post-traumatic growth being another effective method as well. For conclusions, the importance of continuing treatment and developing new types of ways for treatment is very important, but also understanding for firefighters accepting the fact to take treatment and getting the support they need, such as peer support, which has been a very effective method for firefighters, especially sharing these stories with fellow firemen. Another is the importance of getting other mental professionals getting involved, such as doctors and psychologists who can play an important part in assisting and helping with mentally ill firefighters. For future directions, lack of information on female firefighters is very little, even though despite them having a small population, there still needs to be research done on what is, even though there's been very little research. For lack of information on volunteer firefighters, which almost 60% of all volunteer firefighters make up firefighters in the United States. And due to witnessing horrific events, many volunteers do not return, which leads to a lack of information on volunteers. And one other one is more resources for fire stations in rural areas, which most of these research were conducted in urban, highly populated fire stations. And little is known about what type of mental disorders that firefighters in rural areas struggle with. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for your time.